Strange New World, Star Trek x Azur Lane crossover, by Cassus Skirata. Chapter 10 Prelude to MI Belfast was up and about doing her usual morning routine. That is of course waking up the Queen, making her breakfast and tea, and informing her of the day's events and schedule. After that, she is tasked with a more personal task, and that is waking up Enterprise. She had been personally assigned this task in order to get Enterprise to take care of herself and actually look at life in a more elegant way. So imagine her surprise when she opened the door to Enterprise's room and finds the carrier not only awake and sitting up in her bed, but also visibly shaken, as made evident from her eyes being wide as saucers and her seemingly try to calm her erratic breathing. She immediately rushes to her side and tries to comfort her. "Auntie, what's wrong? What happened?" That seemed to snap Enterprise out of her stupor as she turned to look at Belfast. They gazed at each other for what felt like an eternity until, to Belfast's surprise, Enterprise tackled her in a full-blown hug. All she could do was hug back as she heard faint sobs coming from the usually stoic carrier. They stayed that way for a while until Enterprise finally calmed down. They hugged for a bit more before they separated. Belfast wiped away what remained with a handkerchief. "Feel better?" Enterprise nodded. "Yeah, a bit." "Do you want to talk about it?" she asked. She seemed to dwell on the thought for a moment before shaking her head. Belfast smiled understandably. Enterprise was still shaken, and it would take a while until she's ready to share. "When you're ready to come take breakfast, you can get properly cleaned up. I'll be waiting outside." "All right," Belfast said softly. Enterprise nodded. "All right." Belfast got up and exited the room. She waited outside for what felt like a while before the door opened once again. Enterprise looked significantly better than when she had found her initially. "Ready," she stated. Belfast nodded and led the way as they both walked to get some breakfast. The preparations were complete. Soon, the force that was to be the tip of the spear in the effort to retrieve the mental cube were to set out and begin the operation. They would be bypassing Azur Lane's patrols via Midway Atoll and deliver a crushing strike against those who had dared to strike against them. At least that's what Ayanami was able to pick up during the briefing and subsequent morale-boosting speech that was given to the task force leading this attack, her amongst them. Beforehand, she had always dedicated herself in service of the Sakura Empire, always dedicating her time and loyalty to prove that she was worthy of the blade. But now, all of that was coming into question. Ayanami didn't know when it had particularly started, but it was as if something at the back of her mind was plaguing her thoughts, telling her that this was not the right thing to do. Her thoughts kept on going back to those two destroyers she had encountered. Javelin. Laffy. Unicorn, yes. Those were their names. Laffy had even offered her to be friends. Ah. That was it. Guilt, perhaps, guilt that she didn't and couldn't accept the proposal of friendship? Her mind then settled on another thought. "I don't want to fight. I don't know why, but whenever they appear I suddenly lose the will to fight, especially against those three. Why am I doing this? What's wrong with me?" Before her mind could go further, she was quite literally shaken out of her thoughts by Yudachi, the ever-lovable meat-loving dog destroyer, having a concerned look upon her face. "Ayanami, are you all right?" Ayanami blinked before looking at Yudachi. I'm fine, why do you ask?" Yudachi puffed her cheeks and opened her mouth before Yukikaze spoke. "We've been calling your name for a while now and you looked pretty spaced out, but if you say you're, then we won't intrude. But worry not, for the ever-lucky Yukikaze the Great shall bless us with my divine luck. We will show Azur Lane what's coming," she exclaimed triumphantly. Hi, you've been saying that ever since the announcement to sortie was given out," says Shigur. "Come on, we're leaving right now. They say we'll be reaching the halfway point at Midway by tomorrow." Yudachi and Yukikaze leave with Shigur as the trio made their way to the docks, talking excitedly about their mission. Ayanami sat for a bit, gathering her nerves before standing up and walking to the docks as well. Perhaps things will be different for a change. The mess hall was alive with chatter, mostly of the upcoming operation that had been announced. Everyone was tossing in their 10 cents on the matter, including the Federation trio who were currently enjoying the day's special barbecue bacon burgers. "You know," Franklin said as she chewed, "this food is way better than the replicated stuff that we got going on." She hummed in satisfaction as she took another bite of her burger. Replicated matter is expected to be of a slightly lesser quality compared to organically sourced material. Sourcing consumable food from, relatively speaking, thin air will cause some discrepancies, but at the very least tolerable, Jellyfish stated in her deadpan manner. Enterprise finishes her burger and gets the duo's attention. "Okay, so we all know how the plan goes, right?" Both of them nodded confidently. Earlier in the briefing room, Everyone was gathered together to discuss the upcoming counterattack. Ideas were being thrown around as to where the attack would come from. Some argued that they would come from the north via the Aleutian Islands. That was dismissed as the fuel needed to make that big of a flank would not be possible. If I may make a proposal. Everyone turned to meet the eyes of Enterprise and her cohorts. She marked a path along the map. I believe that the Sakura Empire will attempt to make their counterattack via the Midway Atoll. It is lightly defended, scarcely patrolled, and provides a straight path to this base. I believe we should meet them head-on there. What about the three of you? Whale's Hornet asked. We'll be hitching a ride if you don't mind. Our ships are too big, making us fat, juicy targets and will give away the fact that we're coming. We want to surprise them, Franklin answered. A surprise attack shall indeed be most optimal. This operation hinges on the fact that they don't see us first, Jellyfish added. A sound plan indeed. We shall deploy for sortie at once, declared Queen Elizabeth. Right then, we're all agreement with this plan, Wales asked. Everyone nodded their heads in agreement. Eat up everyone. Prepare to sortie at once, dismissed. Back in the present, everyone has had their fill of food and were preparing for sortie. The conson selected for the mission got to their ships and departed, leaving a force behind to defend the base. Think we're making the right choice by meddling in this planet's affairs? Franklin asked. Currently, the trio were on Saratoga's flight deck. They had to get as much rest as they could, for the following battle will indeed be intense if the number of Sakura ships reported to be headed their way were to be true. Of course, that wasn't accounting for the possibility that they could summon siren ships to buffer their numbers. I honestly don't know, Franklin. A part of me says that we should fight due to the fact that this planet is being influenced by another advanced extraterrestrial race. If the sirens can even be called that. But another part of me thinks that we should solve this diplomatically, like a true Federation ship should, Enterprise size. But we're too deep into the fray, can't back out now. She could only ponder if she was truly making the correct choice as she stared ahead. The upcoming battle will be pivotal in changing the tide of this conflict. If they win, the matter can hopefully be resolved peacefully through thorough negotiations and diplomacy. But if the battle is to be lost, she shook her head, she can only hope that the battle can go according to plan.